Ladies and gentlemen, it's a real pleasure for me to have been invited here by Kohler for this design forum. And as it was said, I hail from Nairobi, where I've worked for 30 years as an interior designer. When the Kohler team first asked me to speak, and they said the topic was experiential luxury, I was going, what do I really, for me, what is that? What is that moment when I would say this is luxury? And I realized that after having been a single mother and building my own business for so many years, at this later stage in my life, it's the fact that now I can start my day very graciously, very gently. I wake up to the sound of the birds. I don't need to listen to an alarm clock anymore. I can have that first cup of tea in bed, and I can get up, go in, have the most amazing shower, and then quietly and in a relaxed manner start my day. And truly, truly, to me, that is luxury. But what makes that moment luxurious for me? And it really is about the sense of it. It's nothing really tangible, but it's the sense of how I feel at that moment in the day. And I think that's what really experiential luxury is about. It's about the feeling that we take away from a place or an event at any time in our life. It's that thing, that intangible thing that raises that moment above the norm. It's something that is not the norm. As I mentioned, I have worked in Nairobi for 30 years, but when I came back to Nairobi back in the late 80s, for me it was about coming home. I had grown up there. Previous to that, I had grown up in the Congo. As a child, I was fortunate to be able to go on safaris and experience the incredible beauty of the Kenyan landscape with all its wildlife and biodiversity. For decades, tourists have been coming to Kenya for their dream holidays, looking forward to experiencing the luxury of the Kenyan bush that I had fallen in love with as a child. Over the years, I've watched the interior design industry become of age in Kenya. And I've had the privilege, and yes, the luxury, of working in places that most people only dream of going on holidays. And I've had the chance to build dozens of hotels and thousands of hotel rooms in the region. In the past, back in the 70s, when people first started building large properties, the ones that I stayed in as a child, they tended to be large and somewhat soulless. They would have many, many rooms, very small, not much thought to anything beyond functionality, and the large public spaces that were built to accommodate hundreds. But do you know what? Nobody complained. Why? Because the luxury was in the landscape, in that perfect safari. It was not about the accommodation at that time. It was about the unique, one-of-a-kind experience that people had on their holidays. But the industry started to change in the 80s, and we as designers were called upon to extend bedrooms, modernize bathrooms, and try to imbue these large public area spaces with some sort of sense of wow. And in parallel to that, a lot of new hotels were starting to be built. And in these spaces, we were expected to create interiors that lived up to the extreme beauty of the exterior and the landscape. But now in Kenya, we have a problem. Population pressure and the building of so many lodges and camps has taken its toll on the very thing that people have come to see, our Kenyan wilderness. This year, the rains are late in Kenya. The Mardre River, which maybe some of you have heard about, is almost dry, and it's having an immense impact on the ecosystem. What does it mean, generally? It means that there's no grass in the Mara. And if any of you are aware of this, soon coming up is this time of the year when we would expect the great migration of the wildebeests that so many people come to see from the Serengeti up through the Mara. If there's no grass, there's nothing to attract the wildebeest. And this thing, this amazing natural event that people have come to see over the decades, may not happen. The other thing that's really devastating in this area right now is that if you look at back in the 70s, there were probably about a half a dozen lodges and camps in the Mara area. Now there are 206. And many of these properties pump their water out of the Mara River and pump their effluent back in. As designers in these fragile landscapes, as thought leaders, we need to champion the efforts being made in sustainable design moving forward. With every project, we strive for excellence. Each project is worked out uniquely with the client based on their vision, the location where the project is, and the demands of it. But certain considerations, I think, in design are universal. And when I talk to clients, I always say there are three things that go into making up design. The first is function. And as with a hotel, as any other space, if a space doesn't work, then the truth of the matter is somebody's memory of that space is it didn't work. And no matter how beautiful it was, the aesthetic will pale against this. After we've sorted out the issue of function, I always say to people, then it's about aesthetic and budget. We take these two elements, we bring them together, and we try to balance them. Now, the fun part of that is, as much as we're talking about experiential luxury today and the luxury that we want a tourist to have during their holiday, unfortunately, many budgets aren't luxury budgets. We have to work rather hard. But now I think when I look at these three considerations, functionality, aesthetic, and budget, I think we have to really talk about the aspect of sustainability as a thread that needs to run through the whole notion of functionality when we look at our design process. And I think we really need to look at authenticity as a strong element running through the aesthetic. Now, you may ask me, is it possible to have a conversation about experiential luxury that is not at odds with authenticity and sustainability? I believe that if we do consider these factors, however, there will be an inherent sense of luxury when a project is complete. If you take those old properties that were done back in the 70s and we were revamping in the 80s and the 90s, the thing about them was that in many ways they were eco-friendly. They were built out of local materials, gum pole, thatch, mud and wattle, clay, and they were furnished with furniture, fittings, even light fittings that were made locally. The services were simple, they could be easily installed and maintained, and areas were left open, we weren't into air conditioning and these kind of things. Unfortunately, though, in wanting to upgrade the whole holiday experience to a luxury standard, people have ended up building a lot of properties that are no longer eco-friendly. We're looking at imported construction materials, imported furniture, just about everything. We're looking at very complicated services, we're looking at enclosed spaces, we're looking at air conditioning. And right down to all of the disposable amenities, one-off use plastics, etc. With issues of climate change and environmental degradation being so much at the forefront of people's minds these days, more and more lodges and camps are looking for how to provide a luxury experience that is still sustainable and has a low impact on the environment. They have realized, like we all do, if we do not get the tourism development correct, we will be actually destroying the very thing that people come to see. This amazing African wilderness that we have the privilege to live and work in. When you think of luxury in relationships to sustainability, I think we need to consider a real shift in our notion. So much about luxury in this day and age is about more clothes, more food, more space, more travel. I think we need now to look for the luxury in less. The luxury in that perfectly considered and defined moment. Designing and building sustainable projects are team efforts, architects, designers, engineers working with our clients. And together when we're, as a team, what are we looking at when we're talking about sustainable design? Issues related to water, energy, waste management are very, very critical in this day and age. And fortunately, modern technology is really helping us deal with many of these things. Solar power, renewable energy forms, well-crafted water-saving bathroom fittings, even in lodge settings, compostable toilets are now available to us. And these, in conjunction with other sort of low-tech solutions, are helping in these issues. Sustainable design is in many ways authentic design. It is in harmony with the context of the projects that we deal with, either with the physical or the cultural, and they're building on the ecology and the geography of the area. Also, sustainable building is using local materials. It is constructed using innovative construction processes, along with very rudimentary ones that are indigenous to the area. And the other benefits, of course, all that people are looking at now is that when we're doing this in this way, we are benefiting the local community and not stressing the natural resources of the area. During my career, the bar has really been raised when it comes to issues of luxury. And yet it is said also that one of the fundamental yearnings of humanity is the yearning for authenticity. And if we accept this point of view, then a sense of authenticity does need to be woven through our design when we're working on our projects. Over the years, when I've been designing lodges and hotels, I found it very exciting. And I think one of the reasons for this is when people go on holidays, when they're traveling, even when they're traveling for business, these are where some real special memories are being made. And so I often think of myself in terms of something quite theatrical. I have this wonderful landscape as a backdrop, and what I'm creating are the props that people use to sort of play out and create their dream holidays and make these wonderful memories. And I think for me, that always gives me such an energy when I'm, working on my projects. So at the same time as we need to be a little bit of a psychologist, we need to get inside people's heads and imagine what their dream holiday is. It's not my dream holiday. It's how can we bring this space alive for them? And at the same time, then we have to be a little bit of a magician, because when you're working in bush settings, it can be really difficult to actually bring a project to fruition. Many of my clients have large chains of hotels, and they have brand standards and brand identities that are well worked out and very well articulated. And they have star rating systems that in many ways give their guests a sense of comfort because they understand what to expect in the product. Their definition of luxury is well articulated, and for us as designers, the objective is to produce an authentic design that shows a sense of global awareness and a sense of environmental responsibilities within the parameters that have been set out for us by these chains. At the other end of the hospitality spectrum, though, there are a lot of properties who are now designing their own identity and defining their own personality. Many of these operators are building upon the fact that when you're looking at a country as beautiful as Kenya, where people are coming for that quintessential safari experience, that as long as you have hot water, good linen, great mattress, good food, and service with a smile, all the rest can be put down to rustic. And that is part and parcel of the, that really authentic luxury safari experience. Authenticity is really about context. It's about moving from a uniform cookie-cutter approach to hotel design to something more unique. When we strive to create an authentic signature design, the considerations of sustainability are balanced with drawing from the culture and the history of the areas that we're working on in terms of the inspiration for fabrics, furniture, light fittings, and the like. But what is the thought I really want to leave with you today? The thought that I want to leave with you is this: we are stewards of this planet, and we need to maintain our local resources through sound environmental practice and conservation programs. For those of us who live in Kenya, as in many other places in the world, our greatest selling feature, our true luxury, is in our landscape, including all of its biodiversity. We have something that cannot be replicated and cannot be retrieved once it's been destroyed. This is where memories are made, against the backdrop of camps and lodges in our African bush. And we must accept that it is our luxury and our responsibility to protect it. Thank you.